Hammer fall on the anvil. Steel sings, my soul reigns. Can you hear the fire burning higher? Welcome to the forge. Welcome to the forge. God can mold you in the forge.
Welcome to the Forge, and it's such an honor to bring this to you and to welcome you to the Forge. And what is the Forge? The Forge is a men's discipleship Bible study or Bible program that we're doing here with Impact Ministries and Lighthouse Ministries. And we're so glad that you've joined us, or that you've ran across us, or that you've got a hold of our link. And we're going to have a few things that we're going to build while we're doing this. And we're going to be in contact with America Print Online, which is also going to be doing some of our shirts and our merchandise. And we'll be showing you the links and different stuff. You can, I think there's the Forge shirt up now. It's AmericanPrintOnline.com. That's where the store is. You can click on the category of the Forge or Lighthouse Ministries, and you can go through those items. And there'll be more coming. And we're going to talk just briefly about a series that we're going to do called Be a Man series. And I've seen a lot of this where be a man, serve God, be a man, do this. And those are great. And I like that. I enjoy that. But some of the things I want to do and want to show here is be a man. Let God forge you into His image, and this is where we get the name, the Forge. Is when you understand. I loved the show Forged in Fire, and the process that you take raw metal and you mold it, you bend it, you heat it, you hammer it, you press it into something that is beautiful work of art, that is sharp and can be defended. It's amazing what you can do in a forge. And it's amazing what God can do if you'll let Him forge you. If you will let God take you, the raw, unfiltered person that you are, and you're going to have to go through some hard times. There's going to be a lot of heated times you feel like you've been beat, you've been beat on, and you've been put through the fire, and you've been put through the water, and you had all these things happen to you. They're forging you into the man of God that God wants you to be. And He's looking and saying, how are you going to adapt to this? How are you going to rebound? What are you going to do when you're being beat on? How are you going to respond to that? Just like a blacksmith will look at that metal, and depending on when he hits it, how it moves and how it goes to where the next one will come. And then the fire goes in and he tries to shape it. That's what God is doing to us. And part of this I want to read in Joshua 1:9. Let's see. Let me make sure I get this right. Yeah, here we go. All right. So we want to do it this way. Yes. Joshua 1:7. Let me pull this scriptures up for you. Joshua 1:7 says, "Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left hand." Okay? Turn not from it from the right hand or the left, that thou mayest prosper wheresoever thou goest. Verse 8 says, "This book of the law shall not This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, because thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. Verse 9 says, have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage, be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee wheresoever thou goest. Like I said, men, be a man and let God forge you into his image, his likeness. And see, he was telling Joshua there, have I not commanded you to be strong and of good courage, to be very courageous? What do you mean very courageous? There's going to be times you're going to have to step up to the plate and be a man. There's going to be times you're going to have to take control of some situations. When you come into the water cooler and they're all telling the dirty jokes, that's when you stand up for God and you walk away. And you don't tolerate those things, because there's some things we need to understand. Let's just lay the groundwork right now. Your eyes, your ears, and your mouth are all trunk lines to the heart. What does that mean? That means things that I allow these eyes to watch and see is going to trickle into the heart. If I put good in, good will come out. If I put trash in, trash is going to come out. What do I let my ears listen to? Is it things that glorify God? Then glorifying God will come out of the heart. Because the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart. What am I putting in abundance? Out of those things that's abundantly there, that's what's going to come out. I'm a product of what I'm putting into my heart. And in the mouth, what am I speaking out? Am I speaking cursings or blessings? Am I speaking lies or am I speaking truth? Am I speaking love or am I speaking hate? You know, some people in this generation, they see truth as hate, because maybe you come across boldly. They say, well, that's hate speech, or you're hate this, or you hate that, or you're this, or you're that. And it's all based off, what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? And this study that we're going to be doing is so important for men that maybe you're a shy person. Maybe you're not one that voices your words. You don't stand up and you don't roar, and maybe you're not an alpha male, or maybe whatever the reason is, you still can make a stand. If you just turn and walk away, you don't have to say nothing. You don't have to be no big alpha male to do that. You just turn and walk away. Don't be a partaker of it. When the dirty jokes go to telling, walk away. That says volumes when you do that. You don't have to sometimes say, hey, that's not right, you're going to hell for that. But if you turn and walk away, it says, I no longer want to partake in what you were doing without saying a word. That itself is powerful. So you can do that. There's things you can do. And most everybody listening to this or watching this has a smartphone, or they have a tablet, or they have a TV, or they have social media. What you put on social media is powerful. If you just planted the verse of the day, if you have, and I'm going to make it easy for you. I've got one of the Bible apps on my phone, and it would give me the verse of the day. And you got a little button on there that says share. You can click it and you can share it to your social media. Just by doing that, it's standing up and making a stand. But sometimes we read things and we just scroll on like we don't really care. It's not important to us. It's important to somebody, because somebody's out there listening to this or watching you, and they're hurting and they want answers, and they want to look at somebody for hey, I need guidance. I'm new at this, or I just become saved, and I want somebody that I can look at and I say there's something different about that person. That's what I want for my life. Well, that's what this whole series is being that person. And the Bible, he told Joshua, be strong and very courageous. Be a man, let God forge you into his image. Be a man and love God. Be a man and sell out to Jesus. And be a man and make disciples. These are some things that we're going to do in our man series, that we're going to have shirts made up. The shirts will be on America Print Online for those that want to get those. I mean, you're going to buy shirts anyway. You're going to buy shirts from the Walmart or from wherever it is you go, the mall, or you order them online, or guys will spend $100 to have a jersey, like a football jersey or a baseball jersey, or to wear Tennessee or Alabama or Georgia, whoever your team is. Spend money to do that. Why can't you just wear a shirt that says, be a man, follow Jesus. Be a man, love God. Be a man, let God forge you. Witness wear is what I used to call it. Back when we did our screen printing business, that was back in 98 to about 2004 or 5, I called it witness wear. Be a warrior for Christ. Had a ball jersey that said warrior, and on the back it said Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I can do all things. What that means is you may not feel like you can stand up to the bullies. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You need to start quoting, I can, I can, I can. I will, I will, I will. Those things need to come out of your mouth. Be a man. Now, that's how it starts. That's part of it. Now we want to look into just a few parts. And in this, our first chapter we're going to do in our men's discipleship is called What is Man? And what is his purpose? And you may look on YouTube, and a lot of people have their definition of what men are and what men are not. And men have so many roles. A godly man is a man that, number one, he's the head of the house. He's not to step on his wife and his kids. He's to lead them. He leads them by actions. He makes sacrifices for his family. He's a leader. He leads them in the right direction. He leads by examples. He's a provider. He's out making the money to provide food and bread and water and shelter for his family. He's that person that I provide for my family. When I was younger, I was married at age 20, 21. Lasted 5 years. She ran off. And I was left with a 3-year-old girl and a 1.5-year-old son. And I was shocked. I was stunned, confused, young, ignorant, didn't know how to raise a daughter, much less a son, didn't know about life, didn't understand life. I didn't know what my purpose was. I was just having fun. I was enjoying life. I was doing what Brent wanted to do. And that gets old. It gets old. And then you start looking at, there's this hole that love was once there, or this family was once there, and now there's a hole. And you begin to put things in that hole to try to make yourself whole again. And you put things in that void, and it starts with alcohol, or it starts with tobacco, that you say, well, I'm out, this cigarette makes me relax, or Big Dipper Skull. I used to have Big Dipper Skull in, and it would be just so relaxing, or a big chew of tobacco. I had that too. And I'd just sit back and I'd go hunt and fish, and I would just relax. That was my escape. Smoking, dipping, chewing, drinking, hunting, and fishing. That was my escape. And all those things I was pulling in to fill this void of God. Because God wasn't there. You're going to fill it with something. It may be sex. It may be pornography. It may be drugs. It may be theft. It may be alcohol. It may be whatever it is. Pets, animals, hunting, fishing, shopping, collectibles. Here's a good one. trophies. You may be putting things so you can make a trophy shelf and put things up, and it may be sports. Maybe a lot of things that you put your money and time into trying to fill a void when it's God. And if you fill that void with God, you won't have to worry about everything else. You won't have a love to do that anymore. Your love will be serving him. And he'll open doors that no man can open. And you may say, well, you know, I don't want to hate life. I enjoy life because now I'm living for the Lord. And it's cool because you'll do things you enjoy. I love podcasts. And I shared this on the opening video, and it looked like I had lip sync was off. And maybe I did when I streamed live, and I don't know. We'll fix that problem, and I may have to tape and record these and bring them up later. Maybe that's what we got to do. Not really sure what's going on with the equipment. But anyway, I'd made this statement that I wanted, when I was a kid, my dad was in ministry. He's been in ministry my whole entire life. And as a kid, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, we had a big house there, and he had his own office. And in his office, he had a tape recorder with cassette tapes. You remember those days? These big old huge headphones and a microphone, and he would do his radio service and then take the tape to the radio station. They would air his service and his sermons and his Bible studies all over the place. And he had this saying he did every time he got off the air or ended his air. He would always say, "Lift that head up. Jesus may come today." And friends, I'm going to take that torch and I'm going to run with it, because when I was a kid, I was 6 or 7 years old, and I was watching him. I'd wait, he'd leave, and he'd go to work, and I'd go in there, and I'd turn the tape player on. Of course, there wasn't nothing in it. And I'd flip the light switch. There was a light switch over there that turned everything on that he was recording, so if anybody came in the room, they could see he's recording. He'd have his headphones on, his microphone on, and he would say, you know, he'd be preaching. So I would go in there and I'd practice. I'd put his headphones on, get his microphone, and I'd go to practicing preaching, and I would say, "Lift that head up. Jesus may come today." And I did that multiple times while he was gone, never knowing, what am I doing now? The exact same thing. See, back in those days in the early 70s and early 80s, it was cassette tapes, and you take the cassette tape, record on it, take it to the TV station or the radio station, and they would play those tapes. And now we have internet, and the radio stations have now been replaced by podcasters and podcasting, and everybody's got a voice and everybody's got a podcast. And it's like you could have millions and millions of channels of entertainment now. And so everybody can be a podcaster. Everybody's got a voice. And what are you doing with that voice? What are you doing with that time? And that's something that a few weeks ago we did a study, and the Lord kind of just laid it on my heart and was like, what do you do during the day? You know, and I got to thinking, well, you know, how is my day? What do I do? You know, what is my routine? I'm a creature of habit. I have routines that I do that for whatever reason my mind says is right, and we do them, and they're daily routines. So I began to look at that and go, well, you know, 40 hours of my week is spent at work, and then there's so many hours of my week is spent sleeping, and then you can even break it down. It's okay, an hour each day at the end of the week, that's for your eating, your dinner, whatever. What are you doing with what's left? And the scary thing is, it kind of laid on my heart that that's what you're going to be standing accountable for God for. What did you do with what I gave you? I gave you a voice. What did you do with it? Did you use it to glorify the devil, or did you use it to glorify me? And I began to think, man, what am I doing with my time? How many hours? I was figuring up it was 72 hours a week. 72 hours a week. What am I doing with that? And you think, man, you know, sometimes we get home from work and we just get in the recliner and we just watch TV, or we watch sports, or we watch YouTube, or we watch movies, or whatever it is. And you're watching that and you ain't doing nothing for God. You're just relaxing your physical body. So you are feeding what we call flesh. That's what we are. We're flesh. So you're feeding flesh and relaxing and doing what fleshly desires you want to do. And you'll never think about it in that sense because you're not looking at the big picture. You're looking at what I'm doing every day. And at the end of the week, you sit back and go, I didn't really accomplish nothing. I mean, I've got a closet at home I've got to totally redo. I hadn't done it. I've got a boat sitting in the yard that's got to be repaired. I ain't done it. I've got leaves that need to be raked up. I hadn't done it. I had a tree that fell. And it's an amazing story. And I had a tree leaning over the house. And I look at it and I would say, I don't have a chainsaw. And somebody had stole my chainsaw. My other chainsaw didn't work too good. And I was like, I don't have the time or the money to go buy a chainsaw just to cut this tree down. But I can tell it's in a bad place. It's leaning over the house. Now get this. For the last 5-6 years, I've been faithful to God. More than I have in my entire 54 years of life. I've been faithful to God. I've been Sunday school teacher. Now I preach Sunday nights and Wednesday nights at our church. And I do Sunday school. And then I do my podcast. And I do those things. And I've been faithful to God. And God's blessed me for it. And I really didn't put two and two together. I just looked at that and I was like, man, I've got to get that tree down. It's going to fall in the house. That's the last thing I need. And time goes by, a couple of weeks, maybe a month. I don't know. And my wife is always, we after church on Sunday, we always come home. We go to the grocery store, she will, and I'll get my lesson ready for Sunday night. I'll finish up my touches on it because I'm very particular about how things have to look. I get the meat of the sermon done, and then I go back and I make it presentable because I use slide presentations and put the scriptures up on the screen. So I want to make sure all the font's right, the color's right, and people can see it from a distance and those kind of things. And so I'm putting the final touches on this, and the wind's blowing really bad. And she always goes to the store, comes home, she parks in her spot, which is in the yard, which I've told her, you ain't going to do it. She goes, that's my spot, and that's where I'm parking, whether you like it or not. Fine, okay. So she always pulls up there. We would always go through, take out the garbage, take the trash out, put all the groceries up, clean the house up because grandkids are coming on Monday and Tuesday, and the house has to be cleaned and bleached and ready and all cleaned and set up. And then we would kind of relax a little bit, and then we'd go to church that evening. On this particular Sunday, and this was every Sunday, maybe we'd go out to eat or something. We'd be back home by 2:30, 3 o'clock. And we go to church at 5. And it's happened every single Sunday for years. I'm talking, we're going our 4th year. So for 3 years, was our routine every single Sunday. But this Sunday, she wasn't able to do that. She said, hey, I've got stuff I've got to get done. I got to go help my daughter with this. I got to go help my son do this. And we're going to be boom, 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 boom. And I was like, okay. And she goes, I'll probably just grab something to eat while I'm out. We'll do groceries after church, and I'll just see you at church. I said, okay. Well, I go home, and I'm touching up, and I hear the wind starting to blow real bad. And I'm like, man, that is loud. You know, the wind's blowing bad. And then I hear the awfulest crack and boom to the point I'm in the house, and I do this. And I'm going, what in the world was that? And I'm on the phone with her, and I run out on the porch, and I was like, babe, you are not going to believe this. If she would have been home, the tree that was leaning over the house, the wind blew straight up, and then God laid it over. I didn't need a chainsaw. God brought it down. And he laid it perfect because where it fell, she wasn't there, and there was one spot that tree could fall and hit the ground perfect, and that was between my mailbox and another tree, and God split the uprights. Perfect. Boom, laid down. How do you take a tree that is 50 feet tall, leaning over your house, dead branches, blows it straight up, and then turns it and lays it at a 90-degree angle? My mind was blown. But I smiled and I said, that's how big God is. because his provisions were working in the background. He heard me when I said, I need to get that down, but I don't have nothing to do it with. I got to figure out a way. He heard that when I should have just said, Lord, you're God. Can you see to it this falls? No, I never said none of that because I wasn't even thinking that. And how many times do we get in life where we don't think of stuff like that? We don't think about taking those things to God. All I did was voice it out. And I read this study about God's provisions happening in the background of life where when we're working, things are going on when you're in God's plan and you're in his purpose and he's got favor on you. These things happen. And now I have to go and my brother seen it. I have even the mail person pulled up and said, can I help you? Because it was across the road. And I've never seen this in my life, that a female mail delivery person stops and said, can I help you? And I kind of thought, yeah, okay. You know, what's the woman going to do, right? I didn't have a chainsaw. She didn't have a chainsaw. She began to take all the stuff and start breaking it with her hands and pulling it so that it broke that side of the road. And then she said, okay, I've got this side clear. I'm going to go on. Are you good? Do you need anything? I'm like, no, that's awesome. Thank you. And she drove off, and I said, I just prejudged her that she couldn't do anything instead of saying, Lord, thank you for sending me that person. I've never seen her in my life. I didn't know who she was, hadn't seen her since. And I thought, God knew who she was, and God knew right where to put her. She had an attitude to help. Everybody else backed out, was driving around, and left me with it. But God sent somebody that says, I got an attitude of helping. And I don't mind breaking some limbs, snapping some twigs. I don't mind sweeping it up and getting it out of the road to help somebody. That's how big God is. And I would dwell on that, and I was shocked. And I'm moving stuff, and my brother come home, and he said, let me go get my chainsaw. He had a Husqvarna. You know, if you're a man, you love that Husqvarna chainsaw, man. And he went up there, and he started helping me cut it all up. And we got it all cleaned up. And I cleaned up an area so she could pull back in her spot. But now I've got to go move it because where it fell, now we can't get to the mailbox to check her mail. Quite all right with me. I can walk around. But in doing so, those little things, if I wasn't doing and being obedient to God, that tree could have definitely fell on the house. And then I would have had major, major structure damage and thousands of dollars of repair. God didn't let that happen. That's what being a man of God does. You see, when you become a man, you don't have to be the biggest, strongest, toughest, meanest, gnarliest alpha male. If you've got God in you, the devil sees the biggest, strongest, meanest, gnarliest person alive when God's behind you. He ain't going to mess with you. So it don't matter if you're tall, short, fat, ugly, handsome, bald, hair. Don't matter. God's just saying, choose me. Follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. And I use this because I love hunting and fishing. And I had a show back in the day that was a hunting and fishing show, and I loved to go fishing. And I remember I was watching The Chosen, and in the scene, Jesus said to Peter and John, or Peter and Andrew, and said, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. And it hit me, that's what I'm doing in life, is I'm being a fisher of men. You see, because there's different species of fish. And when you go fishing, you got to say, well, are we going out for largemouth bass? Well, if we're going out for largemouth bass, I need this rod, this reel, this pound test line. These are the baits I'm going to use, and this is the water conditions and the water current. This is the area of where they're hanging out, and that's what I want to do because I want to catch them and reel them in. Or if I'm going crappie fishing, I got to have a different rod, a different setup, different bait in a different part of the lake because crappie hang out over here. Or if I'm fly fishing, I've got fly rods. I learned how to tie my own flies, and I go trout fishing in streams where it's quiet, relaxing. Or maybe we're fishing for big old shell cracker down in Lake Altona, and we know how we got different live bait for that. And I think every species is different. And Jesus said, if you'll follow me, I will make you, means I will take you and transform you so that you are now looking, how can I reach that person? How can I reach that person? I've got to fish for this. I've got to watch and pay attention. What's his interest? What's his needs? And then reach out to him and pull him in out of the fire. That's what Fishers of Men is all about. And I think it's so great. But in this part of this discipleship of what man is, what is man and what is man's purpose? He's got two things. God called all men to be disciples and make disciples, and he's called all men to glorify him. You see, your purpose on this earth is to glorify God. You glorify God by winning souls to his kingdom. Now, your calling is how do you go about doing that? How do you go about doing that purpose of winning souls? Mine is ministry, podcasting. That's what I'm doing right now. But see, all this didn't come cheap. All this didn't come. It took time to get all these bits and pieces together to build the studio. And then the brain had to click what software to use, what platforms to put it on, how to record this, how to do this, how to stream it, how to hook it up, how to get all these. And it's time. But there was an enjoyment because I do a sports podcast too. That's Scenic City Sports. I did a dirt track podcast called Scenic City Motorsports with Boys Speedway. We did that for years. I did a show called Kicking It with Bilo. That's what they call me, Bilo. So I did a show Kicking It with Bilo where we interviewed people, kind of like a Joe Rogan type podcast. And I really enjoyed podcasting. It's how can I take that and make it to where it glorifies God and it reaches people? And that's where Impact Ministries was born. Impact Ministries, we did it. We covered, we did audio, we did video. It's covered the entire world. I get emails every single Sunday that says, hey, this is how many downloads that went down in China. This is how many downloads you had in Russia. Here's how many downloads you had in Bangladesh. Here's how many you had in Japan. Here's how many you had in the United States. In 1 year's time, 243 active cities in the United States are listening to a podcast. That's how big God is. I didn't know. I don't know how to do all that. I just was obedient. I just did the podcast and put it on a platform and let it do the rest. I didn't ever look at the numbers, didn't care about the numbers. I just cared about being obedient. I just wanted to do what God told me to do. I wasn't trying to go, oh man, well, these numbers don't look right. It's not worth my time. What? It ain't worth your time? One soul isn't worth your time? Are you kidding me? You think that you're so high and mighty that one soul isn't worth your time? You want thousands of souls? Thousands of people ain't going to listen to you because you don't care about that one. See, David was faithful over a few sheep, about 20 sheep. About 10 to 20 sheep. He laid his life down for. He was steady. He was faithful to them. And God seen how faithful he was and the desire he had to take care of those sheep with everything he had. And God said, I can trust him with thousands. And he will treat those thousands like he did those 20. And when you sit there and say, one soul's not good enough for me, God ain't going to trust you with the others. No, that's going to be an attitude change. So first thing that's got to happen with man is ego's got to get checked. You see, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And I'm going to be honest with you. I wasn't faithful in the beginning with it. I did it here and there. I didn't focus on it. I didn't thrive on it. I didn't try to stay faithful to it. I just kind of done it. But I did make the Lord a commitment. I'll do 100 episodes. I thought, well, okay, I can do that in no time, be done. And I did 100 episodes through Facebook and those things and live and had face-to-face videos with different ministers that I was associated with. 2 of them have gone on to be with the Lord. And it helped them and encouraged them and strengthened them to make it to heaven. That was the coolest thing about it. God used it to reach those 2 guys. And so I look at it and think, man, God's big. There's nothing he can't do. You just be faithful to the cause, and he will make everything else work out. And the whole time he's working all this out, he's blessing you. That tree didn't fall on the house. It fell right where it had to fall. Why? Because I wasn't focused on all that. I was focused on doing what God called me to do. And I was focused on loving, my Sunday school class, it started with 4 people. 4 people, and I was faithful to that 4. I loved studying. I loved to say, hey, look what God showed me on this. Look at this. And we would learn and we would grow. And now that 4 grew to 8. Then it grew to 10. And then it grew to 17. And now it's 18 or 20 on a Sunday school. And you go, wow. It went from 4 to 17 to 20. Sometimes it's 14. I don't care about the numbers. I just care about learning and spreading what I learned with God. That was the focus. And being a man is being faithful to God. You know, there's going to be times when life is hard. There's going to be times you're going to feel like you've been kicked down. And you get the choice to either stay down, lick your wounds, and say, woe is me. Or you can say, you know what? I'm not done yet. I didn't hear no bell ring. I remember the old Rocky movie where he was like, hey, I ain't heard no bell. And he at the end of the scene when he's fighting Apollo and he goes, I didn't hear no bell. You get up. The bell ain't rung yet. As long as you're breathing, you're still in the fight. You just get right back up and you keep swinging. You know, I've heard football coaches say, keep chopping that tree. You know, the coach out at Rutgers, I forget his name, Rodriguez, I believe was his name, and he had convinced the whole team to just get behind him and keep chopping. We may be small, but if we keep focusing on our job, if we keep doing our duty, if we keep doing what we are supposed to be doing and keep chopping that tree, sooner or later that tree's going to fall. They all bought into it, and they were doing the chop on the tree, the whole team was. And then the coach at Minnesota, he was doing row the boat. If you'll just be in the boat and row with me, we'll go places. And they had to row in the boat, and all these things were incentives to say, be faithful to what you're doing. Love what you're doing. Get involved in it. If you love it, you'll get involved in it, and you'll want to do it. And that's what being a man really is. And then once you do it, you want to share it with others. You don't want to be a know-it-all. I want to spread it all. There's a big difference. You know, I don't claim to know it all because I sure don't. I ain't even close. I ain't got a college education. I've got a halfway college education, if you call it that. But that don't mean nothing. Means nothing at all. I'm part of what I'm doing when I went to college, but I've done careers that had nothing to do with what I went to school for. God will use you and put you wherever to help you because he sees where you're going to be at finally. And all these things you're going through life is to help you get where he wants you to be at. It's a divine purpose and a plan. And he sits back and looks and said, just be obedient. Just be obedient. You spread the gospel. You keep spreading the gospel. You stay faithful to what I've given you because on Judgment Day, I'm going to judge you for that. I'm going to judge you for what I told you to be faithful to. I'm going to judge you for this. You're going to stand account in this. But while you're doing this and your focus is on doing what God said do, be obedient to him, spreading his gospel, reading, studying, having a relationship with him, if you're obedient to that, all this other stuff in the background, that's providence. God's moving. And he'll say, hey, when that tree needs to be cut and you don't have a chainsaw, I got nature. And the wind came so hard it had to blow the tree up and then snap it, and it laid perfect. How is that possible? Didn't even break my mailbox. Didn't even hurt my mailbox. And I'm thinking, wow, holy cow. It's amazing what God can do if you just focus on him. Focus on being obedient, understanding what your purpose is. Don't try to be anybody else's purpose. Be your purpose. Your purpose is to win souls for God's kingdom. Your calling is how you go about doing it. Some people are professional athletes. Spread the gospel while you're there. Some people are professional fishermen. Spread the gospel while you're there. Some people are podcasters. Spread the gospel while you're there. Even on my sports show, spread the gospel while you're there. I see famous people do it all the time. Spread the gospel where you're at, and God will bless it. Take a chance on God. Take a chance on him. Maybe you're watching and you're not doing none of that. I hope it changes you. I hope it changes you. And I hope it changes your mind to where you'll want to be that person. That you'll want to be that person that'll say, you know what? I'm going to be a man and I'm going to let God forge me into his image. I'm gonna let God forge me into his image, into his likeness. And just like Joshua 1:7 said, only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayest observe to do according to all the law, which Moses, my servant, commanded or demanded thee to do. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper wherever thou goest. And men, this is how you can see this real easy. Be faithful to that law. Be faithful to that cause. Don't stray to the right. Don't stray to the left. Be very courageous. Stand strong. Don't back down. You can do this. And it's really, it's about how big is God. And Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Sin shall not have dominion over me, period, because I'm not under the law. I'm under grace. So you understand those things. Begin to speak it. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Sin shall not have dominion over me, for I'm not under the law. I'm under grace. Sin doesn't have dominion over you unless you hand it back to it. We're going to talk about all these things and more as the weeks come. Men, I appreciate you coming into the Forge. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, lift that head up. Jesus may come today.
Hammer falls on the anvil. Steel sings, my soul reigns. Can you hear the fire burning higher? Welcome to the fire.